last night I had my first real kind of transformative psychedelic experience, and I thought that I would start doing trip reports because what I find when I look online is a lot of claims about the potential for psychedelics to have some type of transformative effect on people by providing them with experiences that they wouldn't otherwise have. But I don't see anyone, approaching the issue with a particularly high degree of skepticism, which I think is important because we know that all drugs can elicit a placebo effect. So, if everyone's telling you that there's a transformative effect that psychedelic drugs have on people, and you think that that's going to happen, and you take them, it's hard to know whether or not the actual transformative effects you think are occurring are attributable to the psychedelics or attributable to the placebo effect. I just thought I'd say, I know you can't really see me, but I'm on the Brooklyn Bridge right now. Or maybe it's the Manhattan Bridge. I think it's the Brooklyn Bridge. In between the Williamsburg Bridge and the other bridge in Brooklyn, toward Brooklyn. So, in any case, the second reason that I think there might be, the second thing I want to achieve with making these videos, other than providing like a skeptical perspective, it's providing one that is a little more articulate, because I don't really think that people are really fleshing out what happens. And I understand that to a great degree. The reason for that is because it's when you have a transformative experience on psychedelics, it's oftentimes very hard to describe what's happening. But you can still kind of talk around the experience in a way that fleshes it out somewhat, and you can acknowledge like the certain ways in which you don't have words to describe what you experienced. So those are the two things I kind of want to achieve with these. And I want to start by talking about my experience with, hang on a second. All right, now that that's gone, I want to talk about my experience with Salvia. Salvia, I did last night for the first time, and the way it was presented, my friend had some purple sticky salvia, I think it's called. And the concern was that it wasn't real salvia or it didn't do anything. She had smoked it before and it had only made her a little bit dizzy. We smelled it smelled like green tea, and we were joking around about how it's probably not going to do anything, and that we don't really know how to do it. And I said, well, fuck, I'm going to find out. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to smoke a lot. I'm going to hit it really, really hard. I don't smoke weed. I don't really know how to smoke, but I do know how I've been taught to smoke, which is to hit really hard, drag as hard as you can, mix it with air, hold it in. I did that 3 times, and I did like another final hit as I was starting to feel the effects. The next thing I knew, I was very, very slowly, incrementally beginning to regain a sense of conscious awareness. And what I mean by conscious awareness is I basically mean self-awareness, but as I began to regain this kind of like understanding that my perception was like meaningful and coherent, I still had like a few seconds of sensory memory from the moments when my perception was not meaningful, not coherent. So there was a period of time basically where I was looking down at this red and white quilt, and it was just like, it didn't mean anything. Like I was able to perceive the colors, but I didn't perceive it as a pattern. As my friend was talking to me, at first I didn't know who she was. So the way you can kind of think of this is like, there's different levels of perception, you have sensory perception, and which exists within sensory memory for a couple of seconds, and then you have short-term memory, and then you have long-term memory. If you don't have access to like these short-term memories and long-term memories, you can't engage in this prototype matching process or whatever theoretical approach you want to use. You can't construe sensory data from your environment as coherent and meaningful things. You can't recognize them as meaningful things if you don't have access to those higher level processes. What this salvia did for me, and I did a lot, okay? What it did is it basically wiped out these higher level processes. So for a moment, I was experiencing perception without self-awareness, without any conscious awareness, without any understanding of what I was looking at, what it was, and then I didn't know who my friend was. The first thing I recognized, and I felt like my arms, I had no sense of three-dimensional space. I had no sense of up and down. I had my one arm on the couch, one arm on my leg, and it felt like my arms are straight out, like spread out across, like my shoulders, my arms were straight out like Jesus on a cross, I guess. And I was dizzy, vertigo. I was trying to like stabilize myself, and I had no ability to understand what it was that I was looking at, who was talking to me. And incrementally over time, I gradually began to understand like who I was, where I was, what the sensory data in my immediate environment meant. And I began to like construct sentences for my friend. And what I was describing, what I told her was, I want this to end. I don't like it. It feels terrible. In fact, it's terror. In fact, like in this moment, in these later moments, there was a sense that like, there was the way I would describe it as terror, but it's so what makes it difficult to describe it, what makes that description deceiving, and it's really the only one that I would choose. But this was a completely emotionless state. There was no sense of emotion. There was no sense of fear or agitation. Those terms, even the term terror, really belies this phenomenological experience that I was having, because there was no emotion. And this is where it becomes indescribable. So I'm using words the best I can, but there's a level there's a level to this that defies description through language. But I would describe it as terror and just like an urge, a desire for this experience to end. Hang on. Okay, now the third component I want to touch on is this sense of familiarity. Again, the whole experience is unpleasant. It was terrifying. No emotion, an incrementally increasing sense of like meaning, of being able to construe my environment as meaningful. And another factor here, which is the last one, is this sense of familiarity. The sense that I have been in this conscious state before, and I don't know whether that causes the terror factor or not, but there was just something about it. And my hypothesis is that this goes back to the fact that maybe I have experienced it before. We on a very simple level, or on a very recurrent level, go in and out of consciousness. When we sleep, when we wake up, we have like an initial process of where we have to reorient ourselves when we wake up in the morning, or from a nap or whatever. You don't know where you are necessarily at first. Think about the coming up to self-consciousness, where infants develop autonomy gradually from the moment, from whatever moment they're conceived to the moment when they finally establish a sense of self. And that happens over the process of years. And even during that time, you're having a process of going in and out of states of self-consciousness, or like a state of consciousness in which you can kind of like actually just understand the relationship between yourself and other things. You can construe like the immediate sensory information that you're perceiving as meaningful. And I imagine that there are periods of going in and out of this like ability, this state where you're completely disoriented, to a place where you are able to construe the environment as meaningful. you're going in and out of that as an infant, as a child, and therefore there's some reason for familiarity to be experienced when you're tripping hard on salvia. All right, one more piece I wanted to add on is that my friend smoked a lot less salvia than I did, and her entire experience was negative. As I said, my experience wasn't positive, but the value in it was in the fact that I came out of a state where I was able to experience perception without self-awareness. Now, my hypothesis here is that my friend did less than me, and therefore she didn't have that experience. So I think what you need to be aware of when you're trying salvia, if you use like my and my friend's experience as a reference point, it's possible that if you don't do a lot of it, you won't have the kind of transformative, interesting experience that I had, and you'll only have like the later parts of it, which included like discomfort and terror, and dizziness. So, if you smoke like even three quarters of what I did, you may have just disorientation, vertigo, like a negative, like uncomfortable sense of stability, some confusion, without the kind of transformational experience that I had. It might only be when you smoke your hits off and trip balls that you are able to have like the type of experience that I described. So take that into account when you're thinking of trying this. I think it might be, if in my friend's experience are any a testament to this, it's all or nothing.